Hi, I'm Rosanna from Kiara Crochet, and today I'm going to be doing your questions and answers. Now, as you can hear from my voice, I am still a little bit ill. I managed to catch a cold this week, but the rest of me is okay. My voice is a little bit rough. I hope you can bear with this. But I wanted to answer your questions because so many of you were very, very kind and sent me your questions, and a lot of them are crochet related, some to do with business, some to do personal, and I didn't want to drag it out another week before I had the chance to actually sit down and answer your questions. So I don't know if I'm going to manage to answer all of these questions in one session, because there is a lot, and there are a lot of very interesting questions. So if I don't, I'm going to make this into a two-part series of A and B. So let's see how far we get today and just crack on. Okay, so I've got my notes. I have got my hot grape juice to keep my voice soothed, and let's get going. So I'm going to quickly read through some of the questions, and then I'm going to give you my answers. The first question I have, which is very kind, was from Stephanie. And I'm just going to read you what she wrote, the main thing, and then I'm going to answer. Okay, I recently come across seasonal color analysis, and it made me think about what colors truly suit me according to this theory. I was wondering if you have come across it and if you implement it into your work. Would you be able to recommend colours for different seasons for a certain garment, for example? There are people who have a whole career in fashion built on this theory, so I guess there's a lot to it, but I'm interested in finding yarns for patterns that would suit my season. Okay, I'm going to split this into two. Now, first of all, I have never actually done the colour theory for myself, and after getting this question, I thought, okay, I'm going to find one online and give it a go. And it was actually quite interesting, because you have to put a photo of yourself online, and then it does this color theory and finds out what's good for you, your skin tone, your eye tone, and your hair. And I actually came out as a winter. Now, it was very interesting because the colours for winter were very, very bright, and they weren't actually colours I would wear. And the colours it actually told me to avoid were the core colours that I wear day to day. But it was interesting because I have Oriental heritage, I have black hair, so I can pull off very bold colours. I just tend not, the older I've got, the more I tend to sway away from them. But it's making me think that maybe I should try something a bit bolder, maybe try going back to wearing a lot of red, even though I'm wearing it today. I used to wear a lot of red and black when I was young. So it did open my mind a bit on wearing more colours than I would usually wear. Now, in regard to you, Stephanie, I can't tell you what to wear, because you know what suits you. You want to choose colours that make you feel good. Colours you're going to grab for. Colours you're going to be comfortable wearing. You're not going to feel uncomfortable. That could be a bright colour. It could be multicoloured. It could be neutral. It could be autumnal. Wear what makes you feel comfortable. And sometimes with crochet, it's hard to tell just from a ball of yarn. So get that ball of yarn you're a little bit unsure about and make up a swatch, and then put it next to your face and see how you feel or how comfortable you feel. Or another way to do this would be going to a clothing store and find those colours and try them on. Even if it's not the garment you want, but just to try that colour on your body and see how you feel. And if you feel good, go and buy the yarn and try it. So that's what I would say for you personally. For me, on a business point of view, now, when creating a business, we need to create something which is very coherent, very pleasing, and I actually did use a colour theory but not this new one that's all going around, which is about seasons. I used a book by Fiona Humberstone to create my business plan, and her color analysis is actually based on the seasons. And when you gave me your question, I didn't actually think of this. I thought of the new color theory with adding your photo. But when I actually stopped and thought business-wise, I actually turned to this book. And this book I actually used like a Bible to create my website, my aesthetics, what I wanted from my business. So for this book, you choose, there's a section where you can choose lots of different words that you want your business to be associated with. So when I use this book, I use the color psychology. And this is a section where you have to choose keywords which you want to evoke when people see your business. So this could be anything from joyful to playful, organic. And the keywords that I chose ended up with most of my business being in a summer personality. And these were the words that I chose was attention to detail, balanced, beautiful, professional, quality. And from there, the book will guide you onto the tones of colours to suit the business brand you want to create. And that is the basis that I used for my brand. Now, the reason I choose the colours that I do for my brand is I need them to be aesthetically pleasing. I need people to want to make that garment, that piece. So the majority of my patterns that I make will always be in a neutral colour. Why? Because when people see neutral, it's easier for them to envisage that piece of garment, that pattern on themselves. If I went into a colour which was very distinct, say a fuchsia pink, I would narrow down my audience. So I need to create a pattern which is aesthetically pleasing to as many people as possible, so as many people as possible actually want to make my patterns. So from a branding point of view, I do use colour therapy, colour theory to create my aesthetics, and the more cohesive a brand is, the better people will have trust. So I think that answers all of your questions, but like I said, for yourself, go into a clothing shop, try those colours on you want to try, and then go and find the yarn, make a swatch, see if it matches, and then go for it. There is no limit on what colour you can have or can't have. Everyone is an individual, and that's what makes the world an amazing place. Okay, I've got a little question from Joy. This is just quick. I simply love the top you're wearing in your last video. Please can I have the name? Now the last video I made was a product talk about my Kiara top, which is a box style top with quite an open lacy weave. So if you go onto that video, just underneath you can click there to all my links on where you can buy that pattern. Thank you, Joy. Okay, my next question is from Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. I adore your crochet work, especially the tops with the open lacy look. I love to make and wear one, but I never seem to get the same drape when starting a pattern. Would it be an idea to make some open lacy things like bags or scarves, then progress onto a top? Now, if you're talking about drape, this probably has more to do with your yarn choice than your crochet ability. If you know you can already do a lacy style crochet, the drape of your fabric will change depending on the fiber. So the tops I make all of my tops in either a cotton or a linen. Now in the cotton world there are various discrepancies between cotton. Some are very thick, some have a better drape than others, some very loose. It depends on your yarn. Let's say, in general, the cheaper the yarn, the stiffer the cotton is going to be. That's just the parameters of, we have a saying at home, buy cheap, buy twice, buy quality. So if you're going to use a cotton, buy a quality cotton yarn. This doesn't need to be something organic. It doesn't need to be something special. Just you want to pay that little bit extra to get the better quality cotton. And cotton will get better with age. The more you wash it, the more you move it, it does get looser and the drape improves. Now, if you go on to another type of fiber, if you go on to Egyptian cotton, the drape is gorgeous. Because your Egyptian fibers are much finer, and I use a brand of yarn here called Queen. It's quite fine yarn, but it's twisted and it has a very nice sheen, and the drape is gorgeous. So higher quality yarns, maybe even try Egyptian yarns. Remember, the finer your yarn, the better your drape is going to be. Also, you can try yarns with a mix. So I have used some cotton and recycled linen yarn for one of my patterns, and I have never found a yarn with the most beautiful drape as this. The drape was almost like silk, but with 1/3 of the price. So try your different yarns. I do agree with you that maybe it would be nice just to try a few little lacy patterns first, just to get you into the swing of it if you've never used lace patterns, but try different fibers. So I hope that's answered your question. If you have any more questions, pop them down below. The next set of questions I have are all based around business. So I'm going to try and answer all of these questions, and if I repeat myself, please just switch off a little bit. So this question was from, this one I didn't have a name. I'm curious about how you got into online crochet business. Was it difficult to start? Also, how did you go about learning to draft your patterns? I would love to learn how to make my own clothing patterns, but have no idea where to even begin trying to learn. So, how did I start online? Well, first of all, before online, I had a market stall on the beach in Santos, and we lived in front of this beautiful bay beach, and I sold crochet bikinis. And after making a few hundred bikinis, it became quite tiring to do the same pattern over and over and over again. And through those few years, I also improved my crochet, improved my reading, improved my fit, because a lot of the patterns I was using, the patterns were not fitting to my models. Now, patterns are created by designers in all different countries of the world, and all these different countries have women of different size bodies. So I had to adapt my pattern to a Brazilian size body, which tends to be smaller, a bit curvier, they want more flesh on show. So I learned to adapt my patterns in that way, and gradually over time I learned how to create my own patterns. Now, like I said, I got bored of creating the same pattern over and over again, so I thought, I'm going to try and create my own patterns. So I started drafting a few, got them out to test, and put them online, and it started from there. I started on Etsy and Love Crochet and Ravelry, and little by little people started to buy my patterns, and the business just started to grow. Now, in regard to your question of how do I draft my own pattern, like I said, every single body is different. Now, if you are brand new to creating your own garments, what I would suggest is start with quite a simple thing. Start with like either a boxy top or something simple. And the best way I found to do this, I found my favorite top. The top that always fit me beautifully, that I always felt good in. It nipped in at the curves at the right place and flared out the other places. And then I used that as a template. So I would create a stitch pattern or follow one online, and then I would crochet a little bit and put it against my top. Crochet a bit more and put it against my top. Sometimes I had to frog. A lot of times I had to frog. It's a process. That's how we learn. And then gradually by gradual, I learned how to draft a pattern that fit for me. So that's my advice. If you want to make your own piece of clothing to start with, find that one piece of clothing in your wardrobe that you always feel good in, and then use that as a template. Okay? If you're very new as well, I wouldn't advise trying anything with top down. Try something with pieces. So you can make a front panel, make a back panel. If you want to add sleeves, make one sleeve, make the other, and then piece it together. This is a process. You're designing something just for you. Don't rush it. Stop and try all the way through. And believe me, at the end, your hard work will have paid off. Okay, my next one's from Madison. I absolutely love your crochet patterns and I love combining them with others to make cute things. My question is, how do you come up with patterns and manage to make them so easy to understand? I usually struggle understanding patterns, but you make yours so easy to understand and they are really well planned patterns. So how do you come up with them? That's a bit better. Okay, Madison, thank you for your question and for your compliments. Now, the reason why I create the patterns the way I do, in which I write my pattern, I add photos, sometimes on the photos I will add little dots and little information and stitch markings, and with my free patterns I'll also create YouTube videos. Why? Because when I was crocheting, no one was doing this. And sometimes I found when someone just wrote one line of crochet jargon, I didn't understand. And I'm not a written learner. I am a visual and manual learner. I have to see it and I have to practice it. So I gather that there are going to be a lot of people like me, as there are 4 different types of children the way we learn. And I'm one of those who are visual and manual. So I transferred this concept into my crochet patterns because I was finding many people who were writing patterns and I didn't understand what they were saying. So I try and cover all the different learning ways of how we learn. So when you create my pattern, if you don't understand what I've written, you can see the picture. If you don't understand the picture or the written, you can go to the video. So there are all these options to help you create, and that was my whole point in the way I create my patterns, is to make it easy for everyone to make. So thank you for your compliments. My patterns do take a lot more work than the average designer because I do try to cover all of these aspects, but it is so wonderful to know that they are really helping people, especially if you have trouble learning in one of the different ways like I do. So thank you very much. Now about selling crochet. Now this isn't easy. We put so much work and love and skill into making our crochet items that sometimes when you go to sell, you don't get the same expectation of what you expected for your work. Now, this all depends on lots of different factors, and one factor doesn't make it right or wrong. It's all trial and error. I have done a lot of artisanal markets. I used to have a shop in Germany where I did sewing and I created sock monkeys and also used Indian textiles. And some markets were brilliant. I would sell out of everything. And some markets, I wouldn't even sell one item. It just depends on the crowd of that day, how many people going, the weather. Now, what can we do to ensure we have sales? Okay, when you're crocheting your items, you need to think that there needs to be 3 tiers of pricing. There needs to be those little things that people can get quite easily, it's quite cheap, the middle, and then the wow factors. So you need to create items that cover all of these bases because everybody has a pocket that's different. I always had a technique called the honeypot technique, in which I had seen a friend of mine in Germany, and she sold jewelry and she recycled her jewelry, and these was beautiful pieces, but they weren't amazing, but they were beautiful. But her stall was absolutely mind-blowing. You would walk into a stall, you would walk into a hall and you would see all these stalls, but you would go to hers first. Why? She created the honey pot effect, in which she created a stall so unusual, so beautiful, so intricate, and with lots of little elements that you were intrigued to go there. Even if you didn't want to buy jewelry, she managed to create an aesthetic that drew you in. Now, when I had my own stall of selling bikinis, I couldn't do the same. I've got wind in my face from the sea, I've got extreme heat, so I had to find a way to do the honey pot. So for me, I created these crochet globe lights, which were like a flower. So then in the evening, when people were walking around the market, they saw my lights first. And then they were curious, and then they came over, and then they saw my store. And then when they saw my store, they would see lots of different items for all different prices. So you need to make sure you're catering for every single wallet. Now, the biggest thing when creating items to sell online is your photos. Now, being a crochet designer, being an artist, being a market seller, the actual production of our work is this much. We have to learn so many new skills. Now, luckily today, a lot of this can be found on YouTube or on Skillshare, and you can get access to courses on how to do this. So what do you need to do? You need to have amazing photos. Photos which are clear, photos which tell a story, photos which show your product, photos which show your process. You want to show people your story of your crochet. Okay? You don't want to just put it on the side and take a photo. You need to think about how you want somebody to feel when they see this. If, for example, if you're making a little crochet teddy for a baby, do you just want to take a picture of the item? Or do you want to make a little set to go with it? Or do you want to take a picture with a baby using it? So you have to think of all these aesthetics, because people are not just buying a product, they're buying an experience. And that is where your sales online are reliant. And now you can also add videos. So show people the product in 3D, show them the various ways it can be used, show them the detail. It's not easy, but it is doable. And one of the most amazing things I can say about my work is in the past 10 years, I have learned so many skills which I never thought I would need to learn, but have been so rewarding. Because being an artist and selling things, you are a one-man show. You have to put your finger in every pie and learn everything. Okay, but take your time. Don't rush it. Get the best quality you can. If you want to go on a course, go into YouTube. There are many, many tutorials. Now, just a little note. When I take my photos, when I am setting up my boards, I have special boards for photos. I have my reflector. I have everything on hand. I didn't actually study product photography for my work. I studied food photography because I felt that when you see some vlogs and some websites, their food photography is telling so much in one photo. They're telling a whole story, which I found to be much more informative for me to replicate into my own world than to study product photography. So take a look. I think there is someone called the Plantation Station in the UK. She's just released a book and she creates the most amazing product food photography, which you can incorporate into your own work. Now, just before we move on, Regina, you sent the most lovely email telling me about your crochet and that you can take up to 2 weeks to make a piece. Now, it's going to be hard to match your amount of work with the price people are willing to pay because you are putting a huge part of yourself into this piece. Now, the best way I would say to you is create a story around your work. Now, there is a lady on Instagram called Indiana Rose, and she uses a frog pattern from Dot and Pebble, an English designer, and she creates these amazing little videos. Now, I'm not saying do that, but what I'm saying is use the aesthetic of creating a story around your product. Tell people how special it is. Tell them the work that's gone into it and show the story around your product. Then create the best photos you can. Create descriptions, really descriptive descriptions. Show the process. Maybe do a little video saying, look, this is me doing micro crochet. Look how detailed it is and how much work goes into each of these pieces. And then share that online. Now, I don't like Instagram. I don't. I find it is against a lot of business owners. It only works if you pay. And I don't have the capital to put into Instagram, and I don't think it gives a good return. I use other platforms such as my own website. Ravelry, Etsy is a very good platform to start with because everything is set up and they will guide you into selling your products. They will show you how to make videos, they will show you how to make photos, how to do descriptions, how to do your keywords. So if I was a beginner, I would go on to Etsy first. The only problem with Etsy is their fees are very high, but on the contrast side, they have a huge audience which no one else has. So give Etsy a try, create the best photography you can, create a story around your product, don't rush it, be passionate about what you're doing. And if you get a chance, please send me some pictures of your work. I would love to see your work. So I hope that's been helpful, business-wise. If I have forgotten anything, I will put any links down below, such as links to Etsy, the people I've been saying, Plantation Station, Indiana Rose. I'm going to put all that down below. The next one is from Kiara. I've always been curious on how to turn a knitting pattern into a crochet pattern. There's a dress tunic knitting pattern I love, but I don't like knitting. Plus seems complicated as I can just about manage the basics. Here is the pattern. Now, Kiara, I had a look at the pattern. It is beautiful. Now, you can turn this into crochet, but you won't get the same fabric flow. Why? Knitting is woven, which creates a lot of freedom and movement, especially in the pattern you've chosen because that is mainly garter stitch. Crochet is made with knots. That is why most crochet items will use nearly double the amount of yarn that a knitted garment would take. So we will never get the same flow in a dense fabric like garter stitch. But you could do something similar. Now, for that garment, there will be a schematic. Have a look at the schematic and draw out that pattern. Just a little one, say, for example, 20 meters across for the base, then up 15 centimeters and 12 centimeters for the straps. Just draw out a loose pattern. Next, choose your crochet stitch that you want. So I would suggest for the top, you want something a bit, you don't want anything too loose, you want something quite closed and solid, so maybe go for a single crochet. And then try and match your crochet to that schematic. And then, once that's right, seam it together, and then go into the next bit. Now the next bit I've noticed has a bit of a flare, so you're going to want to increase your crochet here. So for example, this is all trial and error, you will have to practice. So for example, say this is 30 centimeters and you have got 90 stitches along the front. Because you want to create a bit of a ruffle, excuse me, you're going to want to do a lot of stitch increases along that first row to create that ruffle. So maybe do a double single crochet in every single stitch, and then go on and see how the pattern goes. So trial and error, draw out your pattern, try and match it to the schematic, and then just do it piece by piece. If you're a bit worried about the schematic, again, get an item of clothing that you know fits you well, and then use that as a base with each time you're doing your crochet pieces. And just take it bit by bit. And I'd love to see your work. So let me know how that goes and send us some photos. Okay, I'm going to stop this video here now because we've already passed the half-an-hour mark, which is very long for me. I know a lot of vlogs go on for an hour, but it's not something I do. And I'm going to wrap this up here, and I'm going to make part 2 and release this as a 2-part series. Okay guys, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!